Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the second episode of the Veritas Project and Investigator Todd collaboration podcast. Morning, Robert. How you doing this morning?
Good. Doing really good.
Okay. We want to let you guys know that this week we promise that we will actually both be on YouTube, Instagram, X, Rumble, and Facebook.
All the stuff.
All the good stuff. And
Yep.
we'd also like to remind you to please comment and share our podcast so that way we can get picked up by the algorithm and become famous. That's
Right.
the goal, right?
We're trying to get the info out there.
Okay, so this morning you're joining us for episode 2, and we are going to do Ghost Hunting 101.
Right. We're going to have a little boot camp about ghosts.
Now, the group that Bob and I used to be in, the head of that group, he absolutely hated Ghost Hunting 101. We tried to get him to talk about it several times, and he just absolutely refused. And I think knowing where your roots, knowing where you came from, and helping you guys get started in the paranormal and doing investigations, I think that is key to keep this, lifestyle and, this hobby alive.
Be comfortable. Be comfortable with it. That's a big deal because people, they have this idea that they're going to go into a haunted location and it's going to be like the Amityville Horror, or, like it's going to jump
Things are
off.
going to jump out at
right,
them.
and it's mostly just sitting around in the dark listening.
Now, we're going to cover our first experiences. We're going to go over our favorite equipment. We're going to talk about the best evidence we ever caught. And it should be a nice show this morning. I say this morning because we're recording here early in the morning as compared to the afternoon than we did last time.
Right. I have to go to work, so.
Darn day jobs.
There's no rest for the wicked.
So what was your first experience? How old were you? What happened?
Well, the house that I grew up in was situated in the middle of a cornfield. Like, there was no neighbors. There was just the house at the end of the road. And that place was infested with shadow people. And if you know anything about shadow people, they'll tend to congregate in places that don't get sunlight, that they can gather in, or they're caught there because the sun came up, and then they hid there, and then they build a nest in that area, and they just live there. And because this house was in the middle of nowhere, a traveling shadow person would get trapped, or would just stay over there, and that's what happened in this place. And I was maybe 2, I think we moved out when I was like 4, so it was during that time. And every time, the way you would notice this haunting is that things would move out of your periphery, that you would see, like, across doorways. You would see, they would look through the gaps in doors at night, like they could, like, make shadows bigger, so they would turn, like, the gap around your door into, like, a 4-inch gap, and they could peek through it. And they would come up, like, next to the bed at night. They would use shadows to move around out of your periphery, so you'd always see it. They would steal the knobs off the top of lamps. They would take your keys. If you left keys out, they would slide the keys off. You had to put the keys in like a bowl or something so that they couldn't slide them away. That's how they would.
Wow.
They were mischief makers. And that was me growing up. That it was like a normal thing. And then we moved when I was like 4 or 5, and then that house didn't have the shadow people haunting. It had a ghost in it, but that was a whole different thing. It was more of a subtle haunting instead of like the shadow people who are more in your face. They manipulate your dreams, and they can move things and that sort of thing.
Wow. That's a heck of a way to get started.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always seen things and felt things my whole life, and my biggest one, though, was when I was a teenager. I actually have 2 that were right around the same time period. I was spending the night at a friend's house. My mom and her friends and his mom had gone out for New Year's Eve, and it was just him and I hanging out. And he lived in an old house that everybody in town said was haunted. And we were, I'm about to show my age here, we were sitting in the living room playing ColecoVision. and he had those old intercoms like every other nice house did in the 70s
Oh
when
yeah.
when they built them. And the intercoms, well, before that, it sounded like every pot and pan in the kitchen fell on the ground.
Mhm.
And we went in the kitchen, nothing out of place. Then, shortly thereafter, the intercom came on, and static started playing through the intercom. And we're like, screw this, we're out. And we just grabbed our coats and ran out the front door. And as we're trying to get out the front door, because it wouldn't unlock at first, it felt like somebody was coming up behind us, because from the front door up the stairs, at the top of the stairs, they had a room called the Red Room. It had bright red carpet in it. So whenever the sun was in there, it turned the walls into this like bloody red color
Mm.
because of the way the light hit in there. So it felt like somebody was right behind us trying to get us. And we ended up leaving and walking around until the sun came up. Just walked around town.
Yeah.
And then about a year later, it was Halloween night, and me and another friend were walking around the cemetery, and we were dumb. But we actually got chased by a shadow figure through the cemetery,
Oh man.
and yeah, I honestly, I threw a knife at it, and it disappeared. Threw the knife right through it. I had to go back and look for the knife the next day. Because it was, it was a knife that was given me by my grandfather, but I had to go back and find it the next day because, I wasn't going to leave it up there.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's my two biggest and how I kind of got started. And,
Right.
in the year that my dad died, my family said that he was around all that year on my birthday, but I didn't see anything, but my mom and sister did in my house. So that's kind of where my starts all come from. And I don't know about you, Bob, but like I said, I get feelings.
Oh yeah.
And so the last paranormal group that I was with, Bob and I were in the same paranormal group before, like I said earlier.
Yeah.
Whenever something's around, for me, it starts at the base of my skull. Excuse me. Starts at the base of my skull, and it goes all the way down to my feet. If I just get, chills in my arms, just goosebumps in my arms, that's me being freaked out. But if it starts at my skull and goes all the way down to my feet, that's usually when I catch my best evidence.
Huh.
Is during those times.
Yeah. You if you're in enough haunted location, legitimate haunted locations, you develop a kind of a sixth sense. I want to say you can tell right away when you walk into somebody invites you into their house because they say it's haunted, or if you go to like one of those places you pay to investigate, you can tell the difference. Like they're trying to get you in there because they claim that it's haunted, but in reality it's just them making money off of a location they have access to, as opposed to somebody who's being scared in the middle of the night and I need help with this ghost. You can walk into that house, you can just feel it in the air when you go in there. There's like a static electricity to it.
Yeah, we did an investigation one time, and the lady seeing things, nightmares at night when she was going to bed and that kind of stuff, and it turned out we did the investigation, didn't catch any kind of evidence, but what I did catch is the EMF fields in her basement were off the charts. They pegged, and it went up from below her bedroom up to 4 feet in her bedroom, just pegged EMF, which our brains all work on electricity.
Yeah.
So that was causing her to have issues. Her house wasn't haunted. She had bad wiring.
Yeah. I have a similar thing. This lady bought a house that was rehabbed for a veteran, and this company completely gutted the whole house to make it more wheelchair accessible, and then he ended up passing away. So then they sold it on the market, and she moved in there and was complaining of outlandish things like levitating and sleep paralysis, and their husband and her were at each other's throats all the time. And the first thing I do when I go into a house where there's a lot of extravagant claims like that is I take the industrial EMF meter, my big EMF meter. And I don't know if people know, but we'll get into this in a minute, but the millimeter and the little ghost meters that we use, they're extremely sensitive, very, very sensitive. And if you have like a leaky power box that's making whole orders of magnitude of EMF in your house, the little EMF meters won't detect it because it's so far off their scale they don't even know it's there. So I have a industrial EMF meter that's made for like machines and power transformers and stuff like that. And I went through her house and it was peaking that thing.
Wow.
It was like in the red of like you have like limited exposure and then you have like lifetime dose limits, and it was into the orange and red of the lifetime dose limits.
Wow.
While we were there.
Wow.
And she lived there. She was living 24/7 in this house where it was over your lifetime dose limit in like 5 minutes.
Okay. No wonder why she was having issues.
Right.
So we're going to go ahead and start talking about basically the instruments that we like to use, what we personally use, and I want to let you guys know that a lot of this stuff you can get on Amazon. You can get some of the best things on Amazon. Just do not use the word ghost or paranormal when you're looking for this stuff.
Right.
Because the price of it will be doubled.
But
you can honestly get a solid kit put together for under $100.
Oh yeah, easy.
And you can go out and do your investigations on your own. Your phone has some really great apps that you can get.
Mm-hmm.
Motion sensitive lights. I like to use motion sensitive lights. Hot Wheels. The trigger devices. You set Hot Wheels on the floor. Try to get the ghost to push the Hot Wheels around.
Right.
Same with dice.
Balls.
I mean, just all your balls, all kinds of stuff like that. It's little things that you don't even realize that can be used to capture evidence. Get you the cameras on Amazon are inexpensive. Make sure it has infrared capability. Lots of batteries. Make sure tons of batteries. EMF detectors. Like I said, apps. You can really get started for very cheap. Use your phone to take the pictures. Use your phone. It has a microphone. It's specifically made for picking up voices. Right. It will cancel things out, but that could be a bad thing too because it may cancel out the smaller sounds that should be picked up.
Right.
So like you can get a cheap recorder off of Amazon for $20.
Oh yeah.
Stereo recorder. All things that are wonderful ghost hunting equipment.
Right.
So what are your favorites?
Well, my go-to is the Mel meter, I think, because I like the way that it has like the Mel meters. There's like 4 or 5 different versions of Mel meters, and if you're going to invest in some kit that you're going to use a lot, I recommend the Mel meter because it has an integrated flashlight. It's an EMF meter. It's a temperature sensor. Mine has shadow detecting, so you can set it on a table and it'll go off if it notices a difference in lighting in a room. Yeah, which is if you're sitting in a dark room for hours, there's no change in the light. So if it starts going off, that it notices a movement in light in the room. That can help you out a lot. As far as cameras go, everybody wants to get like the 4K HDR, and have like the cutting edge, I don't even know what megapixels are up to now, like 40, I think. I don't know. But that's not what you want. But my favorite camera is a Canon XL1, which was like $1,200 when it was brand new, but you can pick them up used for like $50 now. And that thing has 3 sensors. It has full stereo. It has everything you want in a camera, but the way that it records is almost like a movie, like a cinema camera, like Hollywood would use. And when you edit your videos, it is such a huge difference to have that kind of frame rate. So if something happened, like an orb moved in, and it was only just a little blip, and you're recording on digital, media, when you roll that back, it might be 1 frame that it was in, or 2 frames. But when you're recording in multiple frames on an old camera like that, it can be 20 or 30 frames that you can go into your editing and pick the best one. And sometimes when a ghost walks in front of like a infrared light, it'll only refract for a millisecond, before it just doesn't absorb any more light, so you'll just see just a little blip, and to your eye it looks like it was illuminated the whole time, but in actuality, to a camera, the sensor can only pick it up for just a few seconds. So older cameras, and I know it's counterintuitive. You would think that people they always want to have the newest. I got,
Yeah, people want the latest and greatest, and it's a hindrance, really, because I'm sorry, I'm something in my throat this morning. But it's a hindrance because a lot of these have filters on them to try to
Right.
cancel out the stuff that is on the edge of the light spectrum or
Or
whatever. And
the software that's in the camera is designed to get rid of what we're trying to film. The software is designed to get rid of the fuzziness and the gradients and make a sharp, crisp image. And we don't want the sharp, crisp image. We want the mist. We want the shadow. That's what we're looking for. So I would say my favorite ghost hunting camera, and mine's been gone for a long time now, was the Mavica, the Sony Mavica, like the second generation of that old thing from the 90s. It recorded on floppy disks, if you can imagine. But I got some of the best ghost pictures that I've ever seen anyone collect with that old crispy, $2 camera. Swap meets, what do you call it, the Salvation Army, like those kind of thrift shops.
thrift stores, yeah.
You can always find awesome ghost hunting stuff there. In like motion lights, like we were saying, you can find all manner of motion lights for dirt cheap at those places.
Well, Amazon, you can get, I think it's 4 of them for like $5,
Yeah,
and they're just a motion sensitive light. Anything goes in front of them, the light turns on. I mean, it's that simple.
yeah.
You know.
And if you have any, electronic ability, you could buy those little. They came out like 15 years ago. It's a little teddy bear that has lights in it for like a night light for your little kid. You know what I'm talking
Mhm.
about? And you can clip the little sensor out of it so that it doesn't detect the motion of the kid, right? And then that has a countdown timer. You just clip that off and then wire in one of these battery-powered motion detectors, and then it'll work backwards then. So whenever the teddy bear detects motion near it, then it'll light up and let you know that there's an entity or something in that
sounds
area.
like a lot of work for a motion sensitive light.
Yeah, you could buy the Boo Buddy or whatever from the Ghost Stop that does the same thing. But if you're saucy and you want to save some money, you could always make your own.
So one of my favorites is actually an app, the iOvilus app.
Yeah.
So the creator of the iOvilus, now what that is a random word generator that reads the energy in the air, and
Mm-hmm.
Based upon the energy in the air, a random word will pop up on the screen.
Right.
And the inventor of the Ovilus also created the iOvilus app, and he says that he actually prefers the app because the iPhones, today's technology in all the phones, is way better than he could put in the Ovilus itself because of the sensors in the phones and everything nowadays. So he actually prefers the app. And that is one of my go-tos.
Yeah, mine too.
Now,
I really like it.
It actually takes a little bit of interpretation when the words pop up, but I have had some unbelievable things with the iOvilus app. During an investigation, at the end of the investigation, I came up with, using the Ovilus, that I felt like someone had been raped or molested in the garage area for the area we were investigating. And apparently our lead investigator from that group got a big smile on his face and said, yeah, they had a psychic out here and they told us that, and we were wondering if any one of you guys was going to pick it up.
Huh.
And then I've also got some stuff on my Facebook that on the Ovilus I got just a capital G, and I got house, hollowed, and astral.
Okay.
And it was at the Edwardsville Library, and I looked to my left, and there was a Lego structure built by Gwyneth called the Haunted Firehouse. I mean, dead on stuff. It takes a little bit of interpretation, like agent. Whenever I got the word agent, that always meant us investigators.
Yeah.
So it takes a little bit of interpretation to try to figure out what they're trying to say. And if you can do that, it's almost like tarot card reading, kind of in a way. You got to get the interpretation right, but you can learn a lot of things from it. I really enjoy that app. So let's get into what our best evidence is. I actually have one of the best shadow people photos that I have ever seen anyone ever have, and it was captured in Waterloo, Illinois, in a basement in a building that was built in the 1880s, and it was pitch black. And me and another investigator, I said, "Hey, let's try a new experiment here. I'm going to run video in this pitch black room, and you take pictures." Well, he took the first photo, and we're like, "I saw something," and he's like, "Yeah, I absolutely saw something." So he took 2 more photos, and I went back and looked at the frame, and there is a shadow figure in the back of the room leaning out, watching us. And his picture, it was like a mist,
Right.
but on mine, it was a complete shadow figure silhouette. There's no reason for that shadow to be there whatsoever due to the angle of where we were standing. And you can actually find that picture on my Facebook on Investigator Todd. I actually have it posted up there, and I actually have the raw video also posted up there if you want to check that out. That's my best evidence.
Mine is going to be like a 2-part thing because it was both at the Fox Theater, and we used to do spirit box demonstrations there. Every Halloween, they would hire us to do spirit box demonstrations, and I would give like a little lecture about how the spirit box works and how we use it, and basically how a spirit can talk to you in real time using the spirit box. And groups of people would come up then, and then they would talk to it, and they would try to get responses, and it's like anything else. A spirit is a person, or what was a person, and they get annoyed, they're not a puppy, they've got other things going on than answering dummies questions over and over again. So this lady comes up, and she's like, "Well, can I talk to it? Would it let me communicate with my father, And I'm like, well, it doesn't really work that way because spirits are everywhere all at once with ITC. You can communicate from anywhere to anywhere. It's just if they want to speak to you or not. So she's like, I want to ask it about where the money was hidden in my father's house. And he passed away, and I know he had, $40,000-$80,000 in cash in there, and I can't find it anywhere. And the spirit box gave some offhand comment, it's like get lost or whatever. So then other people started asking questions, and then she got frustrated because it was replying to the other people. So the tour group leader, the docent takes them away, and they start to walk off the stage, and she comes running back to the table, and she's like, "Tell me where the money is." And the spirit box in a perfectly clear voice goes, "This isn't an ATM, lady."
That's fantastic.
Perfectly clear, and every person heard it, and they all started laughing, and she was so upset. Like, the spirits. And you'll hear, during those spirit demonstrations, we hear profanity come through there, and if you know how the way the spirit radio works, it's a radio that cycles through the broadcast frequencies, and then the spirits can manipulate that by taking a word or smashing words together, and they change the wavelength of it so that it makes a response to what you're trying to hear.
Now, to clarify on that, then you said it goes through all the frequencies. It's literally like taking the knob on an old school radio and just going as fast as you can through every single frequency on the dial, and it repeats.
Yeah,
and that's the thing is that when you hear something, a sentence, the short little blip, 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 that's nothing.
Right.
But you will actually hear a sentence or a phrase come all the way across multiple frequencies. And that's when you know you're getting something.
If you hear it, it goes, and every one of those ticks is a radio station. So for it to say, "This isn't an ATM, lady," that's like 30 radio stations that it hit. You know what I mean? It's completely impossible for that to happen. So
you said ITC earlier.
Right.
Go ahead and clarify ITC.
ITC is instrumental transcommunication. It's how you use either EVPs are in there. So if you use like a tape recorder or a digital recorder and you get an EVP, that's ITC too. Especially if you ask a question and you wait for a response, that's ITC. But if you're just recording and then you play it back to listen to it, that's an EVP. They're still in the same neighborhood, but it's basically real-time communication with the spirit.
I have another one that speaking of the ITC,
Mhm.
we had the group we used to be part of did tours/investigations. You pay X amount, and we bring you to a location, and we give you the equipment, and you do a tour.
Yeah.
We explain everything that's going on. You can either hang out with us, we'll take you around to the location, show you all the hot spots, and you can hang out and investigate with us, or you can investigate on your own.
Right.
Two people, two different groups, were in the caretaker house of this hotel that we were at,
Mhm.
and both of them caught EVPs. It sounded like heavy breathing, like basically it sounded like someone was dying of a heart attack.
Yeah.
And that's actually how the caretaker died, and died in that room. Two different groups caught the same EVP.
Yeah.
And it's something that you didn't hear until you played it back,
Right. Right.
So we've witnessed a lot of stuff between,
Oh,
in
yeah.
the Fox Theater. You were talking about the Fox. I did
Yeah.
tours at the Fox, and the Fox Theater is ridiculously haunted.
Yeah.
That place.
My favorite ghost photo that I ever took was there, where we had an infrared illuminator on the stage pointing out towards the seats,
Mhm.
and then I had one on my camera, and I saw with my eyes a mist walk down the aisle and sit down in a seat. And then I was like, man, it's a shame we never catch that, And I rolled back
Right.
my footage and I caught it. Because there was two different angles of infrared light, it was glowing bright blue whenever the spirit was still standing
Wow.
at the edge. And I have that photo on my website. And you can check it out. It's amazing. That's my favorite, like, legit ghost photo that I've ever taken.
That's awesome. I mean, we could sit here and tell stories all day.
Oh yeah, so much crazy stuff.
I dated this girl, and she used to tell me her house was haunted, that they would hear voices in the middle of the night. And we'd been dating for quite some time, and nothing had ever happened. I, spent a lot of weekends at her house. There was one day where we're in her bedroom, we're getting ready to go out for the evening. She's putting on makeup, and a mist went right in between us. And then about a month later, we're sitting in her living room. The two couches were kind of put together with an L shape with a table at the corner.
Mm.
And I was sitting by one end of the couch, and she was laying on my lap, sleeping, had her pillow up against me, and she was out cold, and her daughter was sitting on the other couch, and a voice came from dead in between us. Sounded like somebody was actually talking on a walkie-talkie. And it came from dead in between us. Couldn't make out what it was saying, but it was the craziest thing. I mean, it was just absolutely ridiculous, like loud. And me and her daughter looked at each other like, what the heck?
Right.
So, yeah, just the more you do it, I feel the more you're open to the energy.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is you can't go in thinking, oh, things are going to pop out at me. You have to relax and open up. And an investigation can be exciting and great, or it could be the most boring 3 hours of your life.
Right. Exactly.
It really is just like fishing. It really is.
Yeah.
Now, why do you think that more things turn up at night? And I'm asking you this because I have a theory on it.
Well, it has to do with radiation, in my opinion. And if the
That's
sun,
exactly it.
the sun is blasting radiation at the planet all during the daytime, and spirits operate on such a low frequency. They're such a weak energy source that the sunlight just blows them out completely. So they'll just drift off into a basement or a closet or somewhere and just kind of recharge. And then at the peak of the night, at midnight, they have their most energy. And then from midnight till about 3,
That's the best time.
Energy starts to dissipate again, and then they'll just go hide again.
Yeah, that's my thought too, is, all energy moves molecules.
Right.
The radiation, it's hard for them to move the molecules over the top of the stuff, over the sunlight and heat. And that's why it's always cold in an area, because they're either using that energy to manifest,
Right.
or they're just more powerful when it's colder.
Yeah.
So the best places to actually, in my opinion, to ghost hunt are in cold areas, basements, things like that, because it's easier for them to manifest because the molecules aren't moving as much.
Right. Exactly.
So that was exactly my theory. You went exactly down the road that I was traveling. You took the same turn that I was going to take.
It's science. Man.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the way you think about it.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing that I always bring up to people when they're starting out in ghost hunting is that the ghosts get used to using a communication device. You know, like they understand how the obelisk works after they've seen it a bunch of times.
Hmm.
Like when we'd go to the Lemp Mansion, you'd get entire perfect sentences on the obelisk.
Right.
You know, or some place where ghost hunters are in there all the time using these devices, then the ghosts that live there, or you know, are gathered there anyway, they can use that device really, really well. But if you go to a farmhouse from the 1800s in the middle of nowhere and you start waving
Right.
a, you know, electronic device around, they have no idea what that is.
Yep. And where do you think that you find most haunted activity? I find that areas that are high in emotional energy,
Oh yeah,
schools, churches, libraries. Oh, the Edwardsville Library, ridiculously haunted.
yeah,
We did an investigation there. It was absolutely ridiculous. Any place there's a lot of emotional energy,
yeah,
uh, I feel that the ghosts are attracted to those areas. They might not have necessarily died there, but that's what they're attracted to. You know, and the whole library thing is how emotional do people get reading a book,
yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
So that emotional energy carries into the book. Now you have thousands of these emotional books on these shelves. You know, it's
Right.
basically emotional powerhouse in there because of all these books, and they attract so many things. It's just
Well, we know that you can store, or emotions will build up into an object over time. Like I collect haunted artifacts, and my most haunted artifact I have is a radio from World War II that people would listen to the war on, and it collected so much emotion over the year that I can't keep it in the house. It's in my storage unit because of all the shadows and movement and stuff you have when it's in the house. So you have to think about that too. If you're going to go to thrift stores and buy antique radios or books or things like that, they can have negative energy stored in them, and then once you're a sensitive person, you're in a sensitive environment, then it can play out. Yeah, when I had that radio in my house, I saw all kinds of crazy stuff at night, like tendrils in the
oh
shadows,
gee.
and it would move objects in there. It's crazy.
Now I have an issue with the more I investigate, the more you open yourself up to the energies,
Hmm.
and you see a lot more. So even at home, I start to see more the longer I investigate. More investigations I do in a shorter amount of time,
Hmm.
the more I end up leaving myself open. And that's what you have to be careful. You have to close yourself down to the energies once you're at home, and you know, make sure when
Yeah.
you're finishing up an investigation, you say, you know, no one is allowed to follow me. I don't want you with me. You stay here. I mean,
Right.
it's all precautions you need to take to make sure that you are not followed home. And I know some of you be like, oh, that would be so cool. No, it is not.
No, it's not.
No, it is not.
Well,
Absolutely.
this house is haunted.
Yeah, you've told me that
Yeah,
before.
a guy shot himself in the back stairwell right next to us here, and every once in a blue moon, there's no rhyme or reason to it. You'll hear like someone's kicking boxes around down here.
Oh, wow.
Like you hear like someone's literally kicking cardboard boxes, and you see this place. There's nowhere you could kick a cardboard box down here. It's just stacked with containers everywhere.
Well, I feel I have something following me around.
Mm.
I move, and it'll take 3 or 4 years, but then I'll start having night terrors again.
Mm.
It starts getting bad, and then I move, and then, like I said, 3 or 4 years later, the night terrors come back, and it's happened my whole life. And I've moved to a lot of different places,
Yeah.
but it takes about 3 or 4 years for whatever to find me, and then I start having the night terrors again.
Wow.
And even today, I mean, I just turned 50 a few weeks ago, well, a few months ago, and
Yeah.
even today I still have that. And I catch movement here recently. I think something happened. I think they're doing some renovations in the apartment below me,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they stirred something up. And actually, because I'm hearing noises in my apartment now at night,
Right.
and I'm catching movement out of the corner of my eye, so I think they may have stirred something up in the apartment below me, and it's up bugging me now at night. You know, I have a cat, and the cat will notice things and sit and just, I mean, cats do that,
Right.
but it's gotten worse. Like the cat will get up in the middle of the night and just stare, you know, get in the doorway and just stare.
Huh.
You know, it's gotten
Yeah.
worse.
That's always a trigger point. Is renovations in a house. They always stir up
Yeah.
a haunting because the spirits are used to their environment and they don't like changes in their environment. They kind of see that as their space, and when you repaint their room or you put new carpet in there, like
Especially when you start tearing walls out and
yeah.
stuff, it really gets hopping.
Well, I've noticed too that in hauntings, even if after the place has been renovated, that the spirits will still write or still walk their
Normal path.
normal path where a hallway used to
Yep.
be, or to a window that doesn't exist anymore, and they'll stand in that. You'll hear the floorboards creak, like they're looking out the window, and that window that hasn't existed for 50 years.
Right. And that's things that, you got to look at too is, like you said, people are, oh, how come the ghosts don't walk through walls and stuff? Because there wasn't a wall that, there was
Yeah.
a wall there when they were alive, so they're not going to take that path.
Out of habit, right?
But if a wall has been moved, a doorway has been moved, they're used to walking through that area, and they will continue to walk through that area.
Right.
Because I believe that they still see what they saw when they were around.
Right.
Depending on the type of haunting.
Yeah.
Because so like Edwardsville Library is a total different type of haunting than a haunting that is a residual haunt that plays like a VCR. It just plays
Yeah,
the same
it's
thing over and
imprinted
over.
on the environment.
And then the more active hauntings like at the Edwardsville Library, where things are attracted to the energy and have intelligence, and so there are several types of hauntings out there.
Yeah.
I mean, but
And the way a spirit presents itself to you isn't always what it looks like. They call that the RSI, or residual self-image of the spirit. So sometimes you'll be like, well, this guy, he was tall and had slender arms, and he was wearing a black suit, and you look through pictures of who lived in that house, and they were all short,
right.
stocky guys. Well, it's the same person. It's just their RSI is the slender man. It's not what they actually look like. They perceive themselves as a certain way, and then over the years, if they've been haunting that place for 100 years, their RSI has changed into like a demon or something.
Right.
Where they see themselves as like this monster, when really it's just an 8-year-old kid who fell down the stairs or something.
What place have you been to that you think is the most haunted?
I wouldn't say like
Or had the most activity while you were there?
the Fox Theater. I think it is where I've collected the most like legit, real haunted location. Like your generic, like this is what a haunting is in the Fox Theater. And my theory, like we were going back with the sunlight, and that's why the Fox Theater is so haunted.
There's so many dark areas in that
it's
place.
so dark, and it's enormous inside, and there's no windows, and the shadow figures who are some shadow figures can move from one location to another because they're more on the order of like a demon than they are a spirit. But some of them they've never even existed in human form. They're just a shape. And they're out in the street terrorizing people at night, and the sun starts to come up, they'll just duck into whatever shadowy, cold area they can find. And then eventually you catch enough of them in an area, especially like the Fox Theater has been dark inside there for, 200 years?
Yeah.
Since the 1800s. It's been dark in there, so they just congregate in there.
I have from the Fox Theater. Now, you and I were at the Fox Theater at different times.
Yeah.
So if you go into the Fox Theater and you just stand there and you look around, and the magnitude of the size of this place, like you said, it's big. I mean, you can't wrap your head around how big this building is on the inside. You see when you go in, yes, this is a big place.
Right.
But then there's hallways and room
Layers.
upon room upon room that the public doesn't get to see.
Right.
You are literally, good analogy, it's an onion.
Right.
When you walk in, you're in the middle of the onion. But then there's layers of hallways and layers of rooms and multi-layers, especially behind the stage. There's literally, 4 or 5 floors with multiple rooms that the people don't even get to see.
No.
And then walkways up around the top, and you can literally
basement.
get on top of the dome.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The basement is just a maze of tunnels and rooms, and the orchestra pit that's below, with an elevator that lift the orchestra up. I mean, it's the magnitude and size of this place. You don't unless you've been there and seen the inside workings of it. it will blow your doggone mind.
Yeah.
I mean, and I have caught some great stuff. We have caught some really great evidence. During my tour, someone brought me a photo that they caught. They literally booked another tour so they could bring the evidence back to us. They caught a picture, and I was in the picture, of a woman standing behind me, just a little further down. Just, a woman in a big flowy dress. Like, it was, an outline. You could tell what it was, right? It wasn't
Right.
perfect, obviously, a picture in person, but you could tell what it was. And it was, you can see my shoulder and arm in the picture, because we're like, yeah, this is a hot spot right here. People have seen this. And they
Right.
brought us that evidence after they went home and looked at all their pictures and stuff that they took.
That's awesome.
I mean, there's been a lot of stuff. So we want you to go out there, do your own investigations. Like I said, get on Amazon, and do not use paranormal or ghost when you're
Right.
when you're buying equipment. The only thing that you may have to use paranormal or ghost is an EMF detector, your standard ghost EMF detector.
Yeah.
That you will probably have to do paranormal or whatever. But then think outside the box. What can we use as evidence? And then, like I said, your phone is a great jumping off point.
Yeah.
Great apps out there. iOvilus, Spirit Box, all that stuff. There's apps for all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But become your own investigator. Get out there. There's a bunch of groups, especially here in the St. Louis area. I recommend GRIP Paranormal, GRIP Paranormal. They have some great venues. They'll take you out there. They'll give you a camera. They'll take you on a tour. They'll show you around. Go look for these things. They're fantastic. They're a lot of fun. They're usually at night. They usually start, anywhere between 8 and 10 o'clock, run anywhere between 3 and 5 hours. Go out there, do your own investigation, catch your own evidence.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts?
See it for yourself. Recently I found that there are EMF detectors on Temu that you can get for about $8.
Really?
And they are K2 knockoffs, but, the K2 you buy from a ghost shop is a knockoff, so,
Right.
how far down the knockoff rabbit hole you want to go, but you can find a K2 meter for less than $10 on Temu. So get out there and find your own evidence. Don't believe what other people say. Sometimes people will try to scare you off of a haunted location, and sometimes they'll try to attract you to a haunted location, and it's not really haunted. So
Now, do you have any good evidence out there, and where can we find it?
I think all those photos I mentioned are on the veritasproject.net website, so you can go there. I haven't updated it in a long time, but we're going to start listing these podcasts there. We're going to link everything from the website, so that we'll have a link tree on the website eventually.
Okay, and you can go to Investigator Todd on Facebook, and you'll know you found the logo. It's just a little white, almost Pac-Man looking ghost on a black background, to see that shadow figure, and also the story I told about the iOvilus. There's actually another one that goes along with that from the Edwardsville Library.
Cool.
You can find that evidence there. Like I said, we promised each other that by the end of the week, we're going to be on YouTube, Instagram, X, Rumble, and Facebook.
Yep.
You'll be able to find the Veritas Project and Investigator Todd.
Yep.
And we do ask that you like, comment, and share. Pass this on to your friends that you think would be interested in listening to our podcast. Help the algorithm pick us up. We want to be out there. We want to be a name in the paranormal world. I mean, we've been doing it long enough.
Gotta share the knowledge.
Absolutely. And we'd like to thank everyone for their time, and thanks for listening.
Yeah. See you on the next one.
All right, bye, everybody.